So then also, staying with Sam Raimi, this is definitely one to behold here, the Evil Dead trilogy. Evil Dead 1, 2, and of course Army of Darkness is Evil Dead 3. So yeah, what's your thoughts on the Evil Dead trilogy?
I love the Evil Dead trilogy, but one of the reasons why I didn't include that in my top 5 was because Evil Dead 2 is almost like a remake of Evil Dead 1. So like, I mean, I don't know, it was kind of like almost the same movie, so that was one. But I like the tonal difference in Army of Darkness, because like 1 and 2 are like completely different. Then Army of Darkness is way like on in another world, literally.
Yeah.
So that's why I love that. I mean, I do like the trilogy a lot, but I mean, I discluded from my top 5 just because of the remake, the unofficial remake aspect of Part 2.
Yeah.
That's why. But I mean, I do love that trilogy.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, you know, it goes probably without saying, once again, you know, I've mentioned it several times on several videos, but The Evil Dead is not only my favorite horror film, it is my all-time favorite film, period. I've seen it probably, I don't know the count, but I almost guarantee more than any film ever. Like, I just have watched this so many times. I know it forward and backward, and I just adore this film. Now, Evil Dead 2, I agree. It is basically a remake, you know, and everybody involved with the film has always shot that down. No, it's not a remake, and the fans, you know, bicker back and forth about it. My whole thought was, okay, the reason why it is a remake is because Ash, you know, would not go back to this fucking place with all that shit happening. You know, you have a girlfriend, you're not going to take her back to this cabin where all this shit happened. And then also, you know, she starts playing the tape and he's just playing the piano like, you know, whatever. You know, it's like he was totally oblivious to it. Now, you know, maybe if he's an amnesia patient or whatever, you know, maybe maybe that would explain that. But, you know, that's why I think it is a remake. And, of course, Army of Darkness, I like this film, but I don't like it as much as I used to like it. I enjoyed it a lot more growing up. Nowadays, I can't even really watch it. It's pretty much just a slapstick comedy, which that's okay, you know, if that's your thing. But to me, it just doesn't work as much. I mean, I don't know. It's okay, and like a lot of the effects in it, I think they tried to be too ambitious for their budget and what they could do with it, and a lot of it just doesn't work. And yeah, you could say with Evil Dead 1, well, what about the effects in that? They look like shit now. Well, that film was just so...
I don't think they look like shit. I think they look awesome still.
Yeah, I mean, but they're very, very dated, but still, yeah, I agree that it's awesome.
That's better than a lot of CG effects.
Yeah, it does, and I think it totally still works for the film. And I love how Evil Dead 1 is still, you know, it's a scary film. It's the only one out of them where they actually tried to be scary with it. And, you know, they were trying to make a good drive-in film. And, you know, a lot of the things they did in it, they didn't know what they were doing. And they were just, you know, going with it. And it worked because of that. Because they didn't know so much of what they were doing, you know, and just trying it, you know.
Oh, yeah, Raimi, like, was trying all the different stuff from the camera and stuff. And that's brilliant because he created a lot of cool shit.
Yeah, like all the steady cam and shit like that, making their own, and then some of the shots he did up in the rafters where he actually had the camera and bent backwards with it and shit to get some of those shots.
They went through hell to do that movie.
Yeah, it's, you know, the Evil Dead Guide or whatever, I can't remember what it's called, I have it, but it's really awesome. Yeah, and it's all about the making of this. It's really awesome if you get a chance to check it out. I mean, a lot of that information's out on the internet now, but it's a really cool book all about the original film. But yeah, the Evil Dead trilogy, I mean, it's definitely one of the greatest horror film trilogies ever.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
definitely.
It definitely is. So do you have anything else there?
No, I don't have anything else here.
All right, well, there's a couple more I have here. We'll go ahead and do one that goes without saying. One of the greatest, again, which, you know, we mentioned many great ones, but this one, I know me and you both held this very high, and, you know, we're not going to tell you the placement. This is both in our top 5, but we won't tell you the placement yet. But this is the Back to the Future trilogy.
Yes.
Which... Yes, amazing all the way around. You know, it kind of surprises me when you see these lists coming out lately of greatest trilogies and how low some people put this film and how they don't think part 2 and 3 hold up with the first one. I
disagree.
I just can't get it, man. I mean, now granted, the first one is the ultimate classic because it was original. It was totally original. I can get that aspect, but when you get into how these films were tied together and how it was made to be just a standalone film, and then you look and see that they wrote 2 and 3 and filmed them back to back, and how well everything ties together, that's quite a feat, man.
Oh, but yeah, it's insane. Like we talked about, it's like they didn't even know they were going to make a trilogy in the beginning. But then part 1 made all that money, and then they, as soon as possible, that's when they started writing part 2, but 3, but then they all seem seamless though, no matter what.
Yeah, they do, man. I mean, it's really a trilogy where you can't. I mean, I guess if you really fucking nitpicked, you could find plot holes, but really, there's no plot holes in this, man. Like it's, especially, you know, the thing that amazes me the most about this trilogy is part 2, and how part 2 and part 1 go hand in hand, and how, you know, Marty goes back in time again, and he's seeing stuff that we all saw from part 1. You know, it's just, and they filmed all of that again, but they shot it like every single movement, every arm swing, every step is like spot on to how it was filmed in the first one. It's just, it blows me away. And I've seen these films. I mean, this is probably a set of films, especially 1 and 2. I've seen these probably as many times as I've seen The Evil Dead, and these films just never, ever, ever get fucking old to me. I mean, I could seriously sit down and watch these series of films, all 3 every day for a month straight, and still not be tired of it. I swear.
Me too, man. And they're so quotable and everything. I mean, they're in the pop culture lexicon.
They're fun films, man. They're really fun, and you know,
they don't take themselves seriously.
No, they don't, and it's still believable though. You know, it's not. It doesn't take itself so serious to a point where it gets to be silly. You know, it's still believable. You know, when you think about time travel, like, you know, when I was young and I thought about time travel, man, this right here was it. Like, fuck, man, they got it, dude. If I can make a fucking flux capacitor, I'll be able to go back in time. I know I will.
And those power lacing shoes and the hoverboard, God.
Oh man, yeah, and then, you know, I mean, like some of the things that they got right about the future, like 3D being prominent and stuff like that. You know, Jaws coming out and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's amazing, man.
And then like, you know, when they go into the past and all their relatives and stuff. You got a visitor? Oh, hey, Dad. Have your dad hop in here and say hi. He took off. But. Oh, that's cool. We're live, man.
No, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I'll watch those movies all the time. That's one of my favorite. I mean, as far as movies go, that's in my top 10 probably of all time. All 3 of those. Yeah,
they're great. And you know, like I was gonna say, you know, like even when you get to part 3, you know, and you're seeing like people from their past and shit like that, like their old relatives and stuff, and how, you know, it's just cool how it's all tied together, man. I just think
that's like the Hill Valley trilogy, you know?
Yeah,
like,
it is.
The whole history of Hill Valley is in that trilogy. Like part 3 is like goes back to you know, the Tannen McFly rivalry.
Yeah.
It's all in that trilogy. Like it goes back all the way to Buford Tannen and stuff. That is so brilliant.
And they built this whole the whole town square there in the Hollywood back lot, or Universal back lot, wasn't it?
Yeah, Universal. Right where the clock tower was in the original.
Yeah, and it burnt down, unfortunately, not too long ago. But it was used in several films. I'm trying to think, what was the other big film it was used in? That whole back lot there. Man, I can't think of it. Maybe Pleasantville. I think that was one of them. But there was another one. There's another film, a big film that it was used in. That whole town. I can't think of it. Somebody out there, I'm sure you'll remember it. I'll probably remember it as soon as I turn the camber off, which that usually happens.
You know what's also cool about that trilogy is that it references. It's either for a few dollars more or a fistful of dollars, because when Marty comes in and Biff's watching that television, that's one of those movies, and he sees the guy getting shot, and has that like tin thing under his vest or whatever. That's from that trilogy. And he uses that in part 3, which is that's amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's great, such great storytelling. And what they wanted to do in part 3 is just make, like a Western anyway, which is cool.
Yeah.
Because it's different from part 1 and 2.
Yeah. So yeah, Back to the Future. Can't go wrong there.
Oh my gosh, we could talk for hours.
Yeah, which we are planning to do a separate video just talking about the Back to the Future series.
Yes, we are.
I'll go ahead and give you a little hint there. Now we're going to step into one that I think this goes without saying is the most disturbing trilogy ever. And this is another one where all 3 films I think are very solid and very strong, but these films are without question not for everybody, and it is Toe Tag's August Underground trilogy, which consists of August Underground Mortem, and August Underground Penance. Now, we heard about these films, Crazy and I both, leading up to the very first Horror Hound. I remember reading about them on message boards, hearing about them, but I'd never seen them. I just, they become infamous. You hear about all this stuff about them. It's just the sickest films, the most disturbing films. So when we heard that the first Horror Hound, that Toe Tag was going to be there, we're like, oh my God, we were flipping out. Our first thought was to get to their table and buy this trilogy. That was like the very first thing we wanted to do. And that's exactly what we did. We went right to their table. Yeah, and we both bought all 3 movies. We went home that night and watched August Underground, and our jaws just dropped like, oh my God, what did we just watch?
Oh, that's the truth. I remember watching that just being like, what did I just see?
The thing with these films, people say that, it's just all just gore, violence, or whatever, but there was a real thought behind these films. That Fred has always talked about how, he worked at Tom Savini's makeup school, and all these kids were glorifying, serial killers, like wearing Charles Manson shirts and stuff like this. And he would tell them, man, you guys really don't know what these killers have done. You're wearing a shirt of somebody that's done the most craziest shit you can imagine. And that was basically fuel for the fire for him to go and make the first August Underground film. And basically, it's you're watching the home video of serial killers, and it can be anything. It's not just constant killing. There's stuff of them eating food and just talking about random stuff. It's basically just finding somebody's home video where they've just filmed a bunch of random stuff, but this just happens to be serial killers. And all in between all that, you're going to see some sick and twisted shit like you've never seen before. It pulls no punches, it holds nothing back, and they're just sick, man.
Oh yeah, they are. But I like Penance. I love that movie. That's probably my favorite of the whole trilogy. I just like how, that's a poetic movie for as brutal as it is. It's such a devastating ending to the whole thing. And it's ambiguous too, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I've always loved that movie. And Mortem is just, oh my gosh, that is like sensory overload. That is one of the most disturbing. That is the most disturbing movie I've ever seen, besides the Serbian film. But that's another story. But Mortem is just, oh my gosh, it's so brutal. That story is good too, and the whole thing has it's a good underlying story about the viciousness of human nature. I think. That's something that I took out of it for me.
Yeah, completely just tearing down all the walls of security and
gravity.
Yeah, and the rules, and just no regard whatsoever for any rules in life in general, and just complete savage mentality.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But there's also there's a story there too, which just cannot be ignored.
Yeah.
And people are like, no, they're just all snuff films. I understand that, and they're really tough to watch. They are, but they do have a story to them.
Yeah.
They do. As tough as they are to watch, there's a story to everything that they do in that series, there's something to it.
Yeah, and especially how it goes. With the first one being Fred, which is Peter Mountain is his name in the story. Him and a guy, and then the second one it's Maggot, Krusty, and Peter Mountain. And then in the third one, it's Peter Mountain and Krusty, and they've just completely devolved into just like these savages, these primitive savages. And by the end of the film, they've completely lost their fucking minds. And like you said, there's an ambiguous ending to where it kind of makes you wonder what exactly happens at the end, because it just goes complete chaos. And then the final scene, it leaves it open kind of for your own interpretation, which I think is really cool,
Oh yeah, people should definitely check them out. I mean, they're brutal, but I mean, it's a good story.
Yeah.
It really is.
Now, what's your?
It's not for everybody though.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everybody. If you think The Human Centipede is the most disturbing film ever, you probably don't want to watch these, because when you watch these films and then watch The Human Centipede, you're like, whatever. I mean, at least I did. Yeah. So, which would be your favorite out of these three?
Oh, Penance.
Penance. And another thing we got to mention about Penance is what's cool is Fred actually took some of the hardcore fans and put them in this. Like superfan Rob, he's in the opening scene. Was it the Labonte brothers? Yeah, the Labonte brothers. Our friend Trevor is in this. So that was really cool that he did that. And it's not like, they're just like, hey, I'm in this film. No, they had to go through some shit, man. They were victims, and it's very believable and awesome. Like, I didn't even know it beforehand, before I saw it, that there was actual fans in this, because you can't tell. They pulled it off. I give a thumbs up to all of them. They did a really good job.
It's cool. They're about giving back to their fans like that.
Yeah, it's not many filmmakers do that. Plus be able to do it where it works too, like it does in that. My personal favorite is still the first film. I just think it's fucking crazy. I mean, that first opening scene where Fred's walking towards the camera, and he tells the guys that, come here, I got something to show you. Just like he's gonna, come here, man. Like, look at this poster I got, or something like that. And the camera follows them. They go down to the basement. They got this girl tied up with her nipple cut off. There's a dead body in the bathtub, completely naked. There's porn plaster all over the walls. There's just sick fucking gore and shit everywhere. It's crazy. I mean, it's like you're walking. I mean, I always looked at that as like a metaphor, as walking down into hell. You're descending the steps of hell. It's fucking crazy shit, man. But yeah, the first one's my favorite. But yeah, that is the August Underground trilogy. So last one that I have here that we'll talk about is this is going to probably be on many people's lists, and that is the Star Wars trilogy. And this is the Blu-ray box set that includes the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. So what do you think of all the Star Wars films in general, Crazy?
As a whole, it's one of the best stories ever told.
Yeah, when you get in the Star Wars universe, it's so vast and just full of just amazing characters, storylines, so interweaving. It's just... And
so rich.
It's took on a life of its own, man.
Oh, it has.
Yeah.
Everything's grown out of it. Jeez.
I mean, of course, George Lucas did the original trilogy, and then the prequel trilogy years later, and many fans have came to hate him and despise him from that prequel trilogy, but that's another video in and of itself. It goes without saying, this is one of the greatest trilogies, just amazing set of films all the way around,
Oh, absolutely. Every single one of them I love.
Yeah.
Even Phantom Menace is my least favorite of all. It has its charm,
Yeah. Well, the last one, I guess, there is one more, and I forgot to bring it out here, but, I don't have to show you. It's everywhere right now, and that is the Dark Knight trilogy. Which Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and, of course, The Dark Knight Rises, which is still in theaters. Such an amazing set of films. He broke the curse of the third film being a bad film, and just really knocked it out of the park with the whole series.
Oh, he did. Man, that's what brought up this whole conversation.
Yeah.
That trilogy. Man.
Yeah. Actually, that night that we did the 2 videos here on Beyond the Realms, we, you know, on the way home that night, we were talking about, like, man, that's, you know, one of the greatest trilogies ever, and you're right, that spawned this whole conversation of, like, great trilogy films. But yeah, I think that it's going to definitely go down as one of the greatest. I mean, you could hold that in high regard with all the other great trilogies. I mean, not just great Batman films, they're just great films in general, because, you know, they really blur the lines of superhero films because they're so different. They're based in the real world, and then people that don't even typically like superhero films are getting into these films.
Oh, exactly.
You know?
Because they speak to a lot of people, and you know, and they're all 3 different genres of movies, but they all work together.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
So I know we're running long here on time, so let's get into our top 5. What would you list as your number 5 favorite trilogy?
5 favorite trilogy is...
Yeah, number 5.
Okay, wait. I'm doing it backwards, so I gotta think. So it is... I think I put the original Star Wars.
Original Star Wars is number 5. My number 5, damn, you know, because I've nailed down a top 3, but 5, you know, I actually did not do this before a video, which I'm good for doing that shit. Number 5, I'm going to go with, I'm going to probably go with Poltergeist as number 5 for me. I really like Poltergeist. So, all right, number 4.
Number 4. Oh, wait, I gotta think about this.
Yeah, we kind of had these thought out, but, you know, we're live, man. We're live.
Oh, yeah, okay. That is the Dallas trilogy.
That's number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah, great series there, of course.
Oh, yeah, excellent.
Yeah, number 4 for me. I can't leave this out of my top 5. There's no way. Just for the first film alone, and that's Evil Dead. I'm going to go with the Evil Dead trilogy for my number 4 pick. All right, number 3.
3, Apocalypse.
Apocalypse trilogy.
Yeah, The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and In the Mouth of Madness. Buy these movies.
Yeah.
Support John Carpenter.
Yeah, exactly. Number 3 for me is going to be the Lord of the Rings series. I love it. I think it gets better with each viewing, which I don't get to view them much because of the length, but yeah.
We have to have a marathon.
Man, we can. We totally need to, man, because these look excellent on Blu-ray, man. They're great. So yeah, number 3, Lord of the Rings. All right, crazy. Now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here.
Top 2.
Number 2.
Number 2.
What is it?
Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight trilogy, which,
Dark Knight.
yeah, we might as well go ahead and say this. We did talk about these beforehand. Our number 2 and number 1 mirror each other. Number 2, the Dark Knight trilogy. It's very close to being number 1 for me, but it still does not top our number 1. And I'm sure most of you guys have probably already guessed it with the way we gushed over it already, and that is the Back to the Future trilogy for number 1. The number 1 greatest trilogy of all time. I'm not saying for everybody, so don't start arguing, please. I'm saying our favorite, our personal favorites. Number 1.
Yeah.
And I have to say it that way because I did the top 10, my top 10 favorite horror films last year, and like everybody underneath it, like, oh, it's a nice list, but I disagree with it. What's there to disagree with? It's my personal list, and that's what we're doing here. So don't take this as being your favorite trilogy of all time. This is mine. Yeah. You know, in Star Wars, I probably should have had that in top 5 too, but you know, oh well. I'm fine with putting Poltergeist and Evil Dead in there. I could probably take one out, and put Star Wars, but yeah. So yeah, guys, that is our trilogy talk. I guess that pretty much concludes it. Unless is there anything else you wanted to add in here?
I'm good. That's a good discussion, though.
Yeah, I think it went good. We hope you guys enjoyed this lengthy discussion. We do plan on doing a few more videos, so We hope you come back and watch it. We hope you like our little setup here. We will improve. I'll get this down to where we can record this all in one video and not have this little janky setup. But it works for what it is, right?
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's memorized. It's
Yeah.
not a lot.
Yeah. I enjoy it.
Right now.
Yeah, it's fun. So yeah, guys, I appreciate you watching. This is Beyond the
Thanks for
Realms.
checking it out.
Yep. Have a good one, guys. Later.